Okay, in today's session, I'm trying to give you some idea about few ideas about graphs and how we can use graphs to compute y-intercepts, x-intercepts, and function values at certain points. And then we can continue uh, these lessons towards solving equations using graphs as well. So, right. So first of all, y-intercept and the x-intercept of the graph, very obvious, I think. To compute the x-intercept, right? I'm just going to mark x-intercepts, the points where the graph intersects the x-axis. Clearly 2 points, I can see 2 points, this one and this one. Point A and point B. But what are the values? It's difficult to measure, but it's like -3 point something here. Let's say -3.25 or something like that. Here for this point, 4.8 or something. Okay, let's express these answers to one decimal place. So -3.3. Here 4.8. So coordinates of this point. This is how we write point B, 4.8, 0, right? So clearly the point where the graph intersect x-axis, 4.8, 0. For this point, -3.3, 0. And the y-intercept is the point where, or yeah, the point where the y-axis and the graph intersect. I think clearly this point, that's the y-intercept. So we just write the y value whenever someone asks to compute the y-intercept, we just write the y value, right? So basically in this case, I think 1, 2, 3, 2.8, right? You will see proper graphs in your exams, right? Not like this, because I drew this one roughly, right? So that is, let's say point D, that's the y-intercept point. So the x value equals to 0, but the y value is 2.8. So that's the y-intercept. But as a coordinate, we can write 0, 2.8. Those are very important ideas here. The x value equals to 0 for that y-intercept point. Y value is equals to 0 for x-intercept, because this is the x-axis, right? In other words, what's the equation of x-axis? That is y equals 0, right? And the equation of the y-axis is basically x equals 0. If I draw another parallel line, 2, 3, like this, that is x equals 3. We discussed about that, I think. And a parallel line to y-axis, like this, that is y equals to -4, because y value is constant throughout that line. That's the idea. So let's move to the next part. Maximum value of f of x. Let's see. What's the maximum value? But here, when we are talking about the maximum value, usually you should mention the interval, right? Okay, just let's compute the maximum value without focusing on any other thing. So f of x, that's the function value. right? So basically these heights. So for example, this height, that is f of x when x equals to 4. In other words, that is f of 4. And similarly, this height, that's a negative height, but f of 6, that's negative, this is positive. Now that way we can mark all of these heights, right? But what's the highest, what's the greatest, what would be the greatest height? Yeah, if you compute, if you compare these heights, what's the greatest one? I think this is the highest value this height can get. That's the maximum value, and that height, that's the maximum value of f of x, maximum height. That is, what's this height? Let's say this point L n. I need Ln height, right? To get that, so we can write coordinates of that point n, that is -1 comma 1 2 3, -1 comma 3. Then what's the height? That height is same as this OP height. So we definitely know that the OP height equals to 3. Therefore, that's the maximum height. Don't even need to focus on OP, because we just need the Y value at the highest point, that is 3. So maximum value equals to 3. Right? Then for what value of x is the value of f of x at its maximum, right? So basically, when will you get this height? That's the question. What do you think? You will get this height for particular for one x value, that is -1. Because for that value, the height equals to +3. Sorry. So for what value? X equals to -1 for that value. And we can summarize this idea by expressing this. F of x when x equals to -1, that's 3. So let's write this mathematically. F of, which means you put x equals -1 as your input, you will get 3 as your output. So this is how we write that. F of -1 equals to 3. Right? Similarly, you can write so many results, but here, for example, f of 3 equals to 2, because that height equals to 2. Right? But here, in this case, the maximum value of f equals to 3. That's the key. Very important, because that's the greatest height. Then we can talk about the minimum as well.